Hello, hello, everybody. Thanks for coming around. Got a few people in. Oh, here they come. Hello, everybody. Hey, this is not an episode of Locked On Vikings. There will still be a normal episode of Not Locked On Vikings tomorrow. We'll go over some of the stuff, but is routine soreness the next tweak? Kinka said. This is just a quick little impromptu. It got inundated with like 400 questions on Twitter, so let's just go live. I'm just talking out instead of trying to type everything. So I'll go through it. All right. Put your questions in the chat. I'll do my best. I can't stay forever, but I can probably stay for like a half an hour. I just got to move one thing. But I will answer your questions right quick. Yeah, Shucklevision asks, how can God be so cruel? Because he chose to follow a football team. Is that how it goes? I mean, look at I can't stop thinking about like Joe Burrow, right? One game in, tears his ACL. This is whether like injuries are a part of the game, and while the Vikings have suffered more things in the last month than usual, we're on a bit of a hot streak of things. Things come in clumps. This is kind of the deal that you sign up for. If you don't like it, go follow chess players, which is a good. I do recommend. Chess is good. Why do you do this to JJ? His whole Discord is blaming me, Schulier. So I guess it's my fault. Okay, yeah. So Gink says, yeah, can I get a t-shirt that says routine soreness on it? I love it. It is truly funny how every coach has to learn that lesson where if you come in and you underplay an injury and then it turns out to be worse than you implied, you will never live it down ever. Mike Zimmer still gets tweak stuff. Everybody's got to learn it, right? That's the thing you get when you replace a head coach. Everybody's got to learn that lesson again. Okay, a bunch of people are asking some version of what does this mean for his long-term development. So here's my idea of how this plays out. So he'll miss, call it 6 months, right? I tweeted 9. That's the absolute like maximum recommended recovery time. And for lay people, that's not necessarily for athletes. For the, we'll say, accelerated timelines of the NFL, I don't think that gets me in trouble. But 9 months is the most possible. So that still has him back for like OTAs, right? Most of the mechanical work that players do, especially like rookies between their, like think about like Jordan Addison working on releases. You don't really do that in season. You do that after the season and when you kind of have all that off time. So if you put him on a 6-month timeline and he's let's say he's healthy by the time they play the Super Bowl, right? Healthy before the Super Bowl. You're not missing out on much work versus somebody who played the whole season and then, maybe relaxed for a month if their team didn't make the playoffs. And then, after the Super Bowl, they go, okay, let's start doing the my body's ready now. I can do the rehab. So like my thought on that is that mechanical work will happen. Now, some of that might have happened in practice. I think that what we lose is whatever he would have had in actual practice. And I think even most crucially is the 2 preseason games. I think those would have been big. And losing that, I think, is a bummer for his development. So I do think there is a slowdown, right? It'd be insane to say that there isn't a slowdown. But I think people saying like 2025 will functionally be his rookie year, I don't think is true. I think it's a little bit of a Madden understanding where we only understand that players develop when they're on the field and in front of our TV or in front of our eyes on the TV. Like they're doing stuff all day long. Or, like I think that happened with the Kellen. Why isn't Kellen Mond developing on the field? Well, he was trying to develop, but in practice, away from prying eyes. So that's what we'll miss. But he'll still be ostensibly in the QB room, right? He'll still be doing the mental stuff. He'll be getting used to the language and stuff. So some of that development will still happen. It is not totally lost. But I think what this means for his development is a delay, a slowdown. But I don't think you need to approach 2025 as though he is a guy you just drafted. I think you approach 2025 going, he is the guy for better or worse, and we're building a team with that vision in mind, right? And we're saying, okay, what makes this team, assuming JJ McCarthy is good, what makes the team the best? Because if he isn't good, what you do right now doesn't matter anyways. Everybody who's involved is getting fired. That's just how it goes, right? If JJ McCarthy sucks, whatever you did right now won't save your job. So play to your outs, right? Your outs are JJ McCarthy being good. So build a team that way. And that's kind of the strategy, I guess. Yeah, I just called a Viking Super Bowl appearance. That's right. Believe in Sam Darnold. Viking 12 Viking bunch of numbers says, in all seriousness, I know how anti next year you are, but do you think Kwesi is pinching himself not having any picks this year? Well, no, he spent those picks on stuff, right? Like, he does have the first round pick, right? But not having second, third, fourth, fifth, that got Dallas Turner. And DJ Hawkinson, I think, is still part of that, right? And yeah, that's what you got, right? Like, I think the idea of that, like, people talk about draft picks weird sometimes, I feel like, where they're like, well, you have to have a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And if you don't, it's a loss. The way we talked about not having a second round pick this year, like it was lost. No, it just has already been spent. It got TJ Hawkinson. Yeah, that's or not having a third round pick, I meant, but you get it. Yeah, that's, I guess, the way I feel about it. Like, as long as that pick is still fulfilling a need, like if you didn't make that trade, you would still have a need at tight end, right? So you just already made the transaction. You just have one less thing on your grocery list. Let's see here. For Dingley Wren to break his knee in the middle of Norway chess. Hey, you can play chess on a broken knee, okay? A little bit of Vicodin, Aaron Rodgers this. Yeah, let's call up Geno Smith, call up Tanner Morgan, trade for Joe Milton. I don't think that, honestly, I don't know if you need another serious QB acquisition. Maybe you get another one just to have like you have like a Mitch Leidner for the last game or something like that, but I don't know if there's another guy to make the team. So the way I understand the rules now is that you can have a practice squad QB be your emergency third and elevate him on game day. And I don't think there's a limit to how many times you can do that, like there is with other practice squad players. So theoretically, 53-man roster projection wise, you could have Darnold and Mullins, JJ on IR, and then Jared Hall, cut him practice squad, and he can still be your emergency third. Or you cut him, and if he decides to go somewhere else, you bring somebody else into your practice squad and have him be the emergency third, see if anybody interesting gets cut, that kind of thing. Serious question, how much better is Sam Darnold than Nick Mullins? That's a good question, Casey Luculis. So my thing on that, I think if you listen to the episode I did of him when I broke him down, not the one when he signed him, but the one I did, and I did like a Patreon on him at patreon.com/LukeBrownNFL. Come check it out. That is a Edwin the 15th Viscount of Shrewsbury says, "Face me, you coward." No, what am I being challenged to a medieval duel? But yeah, my take on Darnold was that he's Nick Mullins, but less so, which is a good thing. He still plays like dangerous football, and can be irresponsible with the football and stuff. But otherwise, the talent is there, the explosiveness is there. You can rack up a lot of yards, but you'll have 3 interceptions kind of guy. And it's compare that to rack up a bunch of yards, but you have 5 interceptions kind of guy. So yes, he is definitely that much better than Nick Mullins. And he looked good in that preseason game. Go watch. I made it free to watch early, the JJ McCarthy preseason breakdown on my Patreon page, because there's Sam Darnold. I broke down Sam Darnold in it as well. So go watch that. Like, he played really well, played very sound football and safe football, which is really what you want to see from him, because his whole deal is turnovers. If you see him starting to protect the football, then some of that talent that got him drafted 3rd overall starts to come online, and you have a different package. Nobody's winning an MVP here, but you have a different package that might be, I just want to be in the games. You know what I mean? Shuckle Vision, what kind of music do you listen to? So some people have asked the reason that I'll have like headphones or AirPods in when I'm solo podcasting. And a lot of times it's because I will have, so I have ADHD, and music helps me keep my train of thought. So I'll have like a lo-fi hip hop or something, or sometimes like retro wave really helps. Something very simple and like repetitive that loops, that helps like my brain. ADHD people get it. Like something very predictable that can help your brain kind of like align itself, I guess. But that's what I listen to on podcast. Otherwise, I don't know. I'm your average millennial, 30 something white guy, little pop punk, some nostalgia from the 2000s. You get it. Comment dude 55 says, should we be asking about the correlation between microplastics in blood and meniscus injuries? That is, nope. I don't, yep. Not gonna touch that. Yeah, T-Bass says McCarthy maniacs put too much hype and tension on the kid anyway. Injuries are a variable that happens in sports. I don't blame anybody for getting their hopes up and being disappointed right now. But remember, it's not over. It's just later. It's a very different thing. It's not done. It's not over. It's just later. Oh, Dingley Wren did have to withdraw from the chess tournament. Well, that's too bad. Yahtzee says, can you break down the pick six in practice? Do you mean the night practice that Andrew Van Ginkel won? It looks like a screen you just jumped. Let me find the let me gink a little bit. Let me gink a little bit. Let me find the clip. Play action, little RPO. Oh yeah, he just jumped it. Yeah, it looks I can only see vertical video of it. Oh, here's a better angle. Yeah, okay. So it looks like he got by a sim pressure. Where the guy kind of takes a step toward the tackle and you sort of dismiss him. You think he's part of the pass rush, and then you throw over him and he gets his hands up. And a lot of times you'll get a batted ball on that. Excuse me. You get a batted ball on that. But hey, if he's athletic enough, he can catch it and actually make it, punish you even worse. But that's just getting got by a sim pressure a little bit. Oh, Cozy. How you doing, buddy? What is the precedent for rookies in missing their first year for injury? Does it affect them long-term, or is it just a matter of shifting the timeline by 1 year? In the old days, it would affect them more. And I think the answer depends on the guy. If we're going to be real about it, it depends on the guy. It really does. For some players, they really need that first year to develop things. And it depends on what else happens, right? Like you had like the Lewis Cine situation, but you also have the Joe Burrow situation. So it depends on the guy. And I think unlike with Lewis Cine or a player who's kind of like just a defensive player, right? When the future of your franchise hinges on JJ McCarthy, I could see them kind of warping what they do in terms of their plans for him and the way that the coaches spend their time with him to ensure that the Cine thing doesn't happen with him. Yeah, Scud Block asks, how many months? So you'll find a bunch of different answers. If you look up like medical journals, which is how I research for like an article that I wrote and stuff, they'll tell you a 6 to 9 month recovery schedule. That is for lay people. That is for regular average Joes, or people, or kids, right? Not professional athletes with access to the resources and all of the accelerating factors that an NFL team may have access to. In NFL terms, I've seen 4 to 6 months be the case. So I would say it's reasonable to, with some level of a margin for error, say he'll be out for the season and he'll be ready to continue his practice immediately after it. Call it that. I think the Super Bowl is maybe a good date for that. After the Super Bowl, he'll be good to go. And then he can go and, work on the field with Adam Thielen more and work on his mechanics and do all the stuff he was kind of supposed to be doing right now, and resume that and come into camp next year having worked on his stuff for 4 more months. And hopefully we can see a step forward from that. This would be, I think, a lot worse if it happened like week 8 and we were going, I hope he's ready for camp. If it were like a TJ Hawkinson style timeline where we're going, he might start the season on pup, because then you lose that whole offseason. Not a big deal for TJ Hawkinson. He doesn't need a whole offseason to work on his mechanics or anything like that, We got German in the chat. I don't need that. All right. I don't need you Euro trash. What does this mean for LeBron's legacy? Why does everybody ask me that? Film room. Yes, MS6 boy. Film room. So it's film room, but it's a meeting room too. It's game planning. So what you're going to do now is you're going to sit there and essentially be an assistant quarterback's coach. That's what all the backups is. What Mullins will do. If Hall's still in the building, he'll do it. They'll sit there and they'll be like, okay, so I watched some tape on the New York Giants, and this is what this corner does, and this is what they like to do in coverage, and here's what their preseason plan was. And they'll all watch tape and say, here's what I think I noticed, and there'll be a whole meeting room where they discuss it and say, okay, do we think it's a good idea that if this corner's impressed, we go for the go ball, or do we think he's too good for that? And then they'll discuss that. And going through that process is sort of learning on the job a little bit. Not like you won't memorize more playbook necessarily that way. You'll maybe memorize game plans, but because you're not preparing to play in the game, you might not. But what you'll do is you'll get used to talking in the language of the offense. Whereas right now, I would guess in his brain, he is seeing a concept like bow, which is an arrow with a wrapping with a basic wrapping behind it. We call that bow in any McVay offense. So in Minnesota, they call that bow. In Michigan, they might call that something else. They might call it wrap in. They might call it bus is another word for it. So he might be saying like, I'm used to calling this bus. Oh yeah, bus is bow. And like translating in his mind. It's like learning a new language, right? Where you go from the part where you're hearing words and then translating them in your mind, but with enough immersion, you eventually start thinking in the language. So like that's the mental part. And then hopefully that makes him a little more comfortable with doing the reads a little faster, which was one of the other things. And then come off season, you kind of focus more on the physical part. Ideally, you're doing those things simultaneously. Now you got to do them one after the other. But again, it's a delay, not death. There are even more Germans lurking in the shadows. Well, I don't love that. Enough with these Germans. Every Vikes podcaster was telling us to be hype. As Vikes fans, should we no longer do that because bad things happen? Nah, screw that. Hype away. Get hyped about Dallas Turner. I don't care how hurt he is. Get hyped about Dallas Turner. He rocks. Have fun. That was a fun 36 hours. You can't take that away from me. You can't take it away from me. And you can't take away from me the long-term excitement, because this ultimately will be a bump in a long road. Yeah, Yahtzee says, who gets JJ's roster spot? Great question. If you're asking 53-man roster, could be Jaren Hall, could be somebody not in the quarterback room, like a Myles Gaskin or somebody like that. If you're talking about 90-man, I don't know. Maybe they bring in some random corner. Maybe they bring in some like linebacker you've never heard of, some 90th player that won't make the team. Dak says, so is there a chance that he will be able to practice before the season ends? Isn't there windows where teams can't interact with their players? So yeah, that window where teams can't interact with their players is where a lot of players get their mechanical work done. Is where they go and they say, okay, and sometimes the coach will say, hey, while you're off, I would love for you, Jordan Addison, to work on your releases. And then he'll go off and work on, I can't bring you into the facility. I can't work on releases with you, but you can go work on your, but I would love for you to come back with better releases. And he can go take that directive and attack it however he sees fit, which the NFLPA is okay with that. So like that's the part, but is there a chance he'll be able to practice before the season ends? By the nature of like these timelines, you could argue that like maybe there would be time for him to be done, but the tweets from Rap Sheet and Pelissero say season over. So I'm going to assume that that's probably not the plan now. Yeah, Todd Banks said at some point, just admit that it's not the Vikings year. Dude, I've been saying that like all off season. Of course it's not the Vikings year, but I don't need to hear from people like that. All right. If you are watching a live stream of Locked On Vikings on a Wednesday afternoon in the preseason, you're going to watch the Vikings whether it's their year or not. And if you don't want to watch the Vikings because they're not going to win the Super Bowl, then leave. I'm fine with that. I don't begrudge you that at all. Go do something else with your Sundays. Go spend time with your family. Like, it's fine. Nobody's going to judge you. But to stick around, like, if you're going to stick around, then be here. You know what I mean? And try to, I guess, be where your feet are, right? Or what? Amor fati. I love that. Amor fati. That's what JJ McCarthy tweeted. Love your fate. Robert Bach says, if Darnold does well enough, do you expect to see an extension so that JJ doesn't have to start week 1 next season? This is, I think, the next kind of step of thinking about it, right? Is what happens now with Sam Darnold. I could see him getting another year if he plays well enough. And And I, you would do that without any expectation of who starts week 1. You would just say, hey, competition's good. Let's bring him in the building. Can't hurt to have another good quarterback. What if he gets hurt again? We still have him. We're happy with that, right? If things work out and everybody's happy and Darnold liked it here, say, hey, yeah, let's re-up. Let's do this again. And then my guess would be that JJ McCarthy would be in competition in formality only. You say, yeah, it's competition. Hey, what if this dude like totally lights it up and we have a Geno Smith situation, right? Like, let's open ourselves up to that possibility. Let's leave ourselves like capable of that possibility. And then Darnold spends a year as a backup, probably, right? If it's a competition kind of in name only, and JJ McCarthy does start week 1, which I at this juncture, I feel pretty safe saying 2025 week 1, JJ McCarthy will be the starting quarterback unless he gets hurt again, right? Like, barring further setbacks, that is probably the target now. But Sam Darnold, as a veteran mentor, a guy he has now established a relationship with, as somebody that can, we've now seen if we're re-upping him, we're probably pretty happy with him. So now he's a backup you can be really, really excited and happy about. Sure. Although the other thing I will say is if he plays so well that he can get starting money somewhere and actually have a Geno Smith arc with someone, he'll probably just do that. And he won't come back here to be a backup and make backup money. And that's fair enough. Go forth and prosper. All right, big man. Adversity and injuries at the start of most of our best season. True. Adversity and injuries, right? Brad Johnson getting hurt week 2, 1998. Remember? You got Sam Bradford, 2017. 1987, he had the strike, right? Vikings have their best years in weird years. Let's go. Sam Darnold, Super Bowl. I'm going to leave it there. I got a split. So we'll have a normal Locked On Vikings and stuff like that. Thank you guys so much for hanging out. I think I got to most of your stuff. If I didn't, I apologize. Save it for Twitter Tuesday, though. You guys know where to put it. Google form, the show notes, and all that. I will see you all next time.